Hello, this is the first of a series of short video clips that I will make each day for Christiana Figueres, who is chairing the UN climate change talks in Warsaw, and I will make one each day until the end of those talks. Christiana, all 18 climate change talks so far have failed. Do you really think that the 19th set of talks that you are chairing today will suddenly succeed? Or perhaps do you not wonder if there is a structural failure within the process that needs to be addressed before we have any hope of making the size of cuts that we need to CO2 emissions to avoid runaway climate change? The talks that you are chairing today are set against atmospheric CO2 that this year went through the 400 parts per million barrier. It is now increasing super exponentially. Sometime between 2020 and 2035, atmospheric CO2 will go through the 450 parts per million level. At that point, the warming of the ocean will be so significant that the ocean circulation will stop. It will cause the ocean food chains to collapse. It will stop the oceans sequestrating CO2 out the atmosphere. It will move the planet into the final stages of runaway climate change from which there is no recovery. And it is against that background that you are pursuing the Durban Platform. The Durban Platform requires the nations of this planet to start cutting their CO2 emissions to a legally binding framework in 2020. That is far too late. The climate change talks that you are now chairing are doing nothing other than ensuring that business as usual will continue until the day of reckoning for this planet. We have had 150 years of industrialization, and we are now paying the price for that. Those 150 years have seen two things. They have seen CO2 rising to dangerous levels, and they have seen the build-up of the military-industrial complex, and the apex of that is nuclear weapons. The 5 members of the United Nations, the 5 permanent members of the United Nations, are all upgrading their nuclear weapons systems. This requires enormous military-industrial complexes. It requires expanding economies to ensure that those military-industrial complexes can be funded with tax receipts. It makes making the cuts in CO2 emissions that they must commit to impossible. Unless you force nuclear weapons onto the climate change negotiating tables, we will have both runaway climate change and nuclear war. The unspoken objective of current government strategy for the United Nations P5 permanent members is that by 2050, the only people left surviving on this planet will be the crews of the nuclear submarines. Thank you.